So this video is about paragraph coherence, a very important aspect of writing. I'd like to define this first. So a coherent paragraph has sentences that follow each other logically. They're not isolated ideas, just like the links in this chain. A coherent paragraph means that one sentence flows into the next sentence. And just as your essay needs to be coherent, your paragraphs need coherence as well. There are 4 ways we'll discuss of achieving coherence, and we'll spend a couple of minutes on each of these. So a key component of coherence is to make sure your paragraph has unity, that all sentences in the paragraph reflect the idea that is expressed, ideally, in the topic sentence. If your paragraph is unified, it means that you don't have sentences in there that should be pulled out and put into another paragraph and developed. A tip I recommend for ensuring that your paragraph has unity is to turn the topic sentence into a question and then make sure that every sentence in that paragraph responds to that question. But assume for a second that you've done this, that every sentence in your paragraph deals with the topic that's expressed in the topic sentence. How do you make sure that things connect logically? Well, one device is to use transitional words, and these will show your reader how you're connecting ideas. So if you're providing an example, you would use for example. If you're showing a cause-effect relationship, you might say consequently or therefore. One of the problems with transitional words, though, is that sometimes the ideas really aren't connected. They're not flowing together well. And the author thinks that, oh, if I just plug in likewise, I will have a coherent paragraph. And I think that's the risk using transitional words. I find that I actually use relatively few in my writing, and I'll give you some examples of this. Okay. Another way to ensure coherence, and I think this is actually more effective than just plugging in transitional words, is to organize your ideas using a pattern. For instance, making sure that one idea builds on the next, or starting out with an idea and then using examples to support this idea. But there are other ways as well. For example, you can start with a general idea and move into the particulars. I'll show you an example of this in a minute. Or you can start off with the very small stuff and try to work your way up to a general statement, sort of like inductive thinking. Or you can start out with a question and provide answers to that question. Assuming your ideas do follow a pattern, it's important to repeat key words, phrases, or ideas. This provides an impression of coherence and also unity. So you want to state one idea or fact and then make sure it's related to another idea. You can refer to a noun mentioned earlier using a pronoun, or you can use parallel ideas. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example from a student essay. Let me just explain the assignment to you. So I asked students to research the effects of internet activity on the brain. But I made it a little more personal than this. I asked them to look at their own experience. I actually asked them to refrain from using electronic devices for 3 days and to see what happened. So I thought this was a really cool idea. I practically had a riot on my hands. My students didn't think it was that great an idea, but I got some really interesting essays. Now, let me give you an example from one student essay. I could never have imagined life without electronics. There's no doubt that communications technologies shape and reshape society. Just look at the impact that printing and the broadcast media have had on our world. I tried to not think of my cell phone, but I couldn't. I wanted to take pictures of the food I cooked or what my friends and I were doing and post these for my followers, and felt really sad when I couldn't. Now, I think you'll realize there's an absence of coherence in this paragraph. The student begins by talking about imagining her life without electronics, but then she has a quote that deals with the impact of technology on broadcast media, on printing. And then she takes it down to a personal level and talks about how she's sad without her cell phone. So I took this paragraph and I thought, let me revise this. Let me see how I can plug these sentences together. So this is what I came up with. As a result of this assignment, I realized how dependent my generation is on social media for companionship. Okay, so that became the topic of the paragraph. Dependency on social media for companionship. Then I have a quote. In fact, according to an article by Sherry Turkle in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, electronic devices are being designed to serve explicitly as companions, pets, and tutors. Now, that quote fits the idea, unlike the other quote that had been used, which I figured you'll agree we had to get rid of. The reality of my relationship with an electronic device became clear during the 3-day electronics ban. Without my cell phone, I felt oddly disconnected from the world. And then I included other sentences from her paragraph. Let's take a closer look at this. So we have the topic sentence again. And notice how I have synonyms. I have the same idea, repeated: companion, friends, followers, and then disconnected, antonyms, friendless. I just have 2 transitional words. That's it. And yet the paragraph coheres quite nicely. So I hope this has been helpful. Please refer now to the assignment.